business, or are you running a business? Valuation is the ultimate KPI.
Hey there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast, brought to you by Trulytics, the one and only comprehensive advisor transition management platform. This episode is going to be a little different, and frankly, I think it's going to be pretty awesome. I mean, I say that with like the least amount of modesty I can muster, because I've been watching a ton of racing, as you'll hear me say in the opening of the episode. I mean, a lot of auto racing. And if you watch a lot of racing, you know, the adrenaline gets going and it's a lot of fun. And so what we're going to do in this episode is we are going to burn the tires off and grind an analogy into the asphalt with 500 laps around your favorite track. Pick it. We're going to have some fun. The concept here really is there are some serious parallels between race car drivers and top performing financial advisors. And the parallel doesn't just stop at the tip of the spear there, the person behind the wheel, if you will. It really goes up a level to the teams that support the drivers, the teams that support the advisors. Because if you look across the auto racing landscape and whatever your favorite racing genre is, whether that's F1 or NASCAR or NHRA, Baja 1000, and you name it, whatever it is, there's a team behind the driver. And that team does a lot of work and there's a lot of specialization there. And without that team, the racers don't win. And in your business, without your team, your advisors don't win. Now, knowing how competitive our space is and knowing how few top performers there are relative to the overall advisor population, it behooves us to start thinking differently about elite advisor performance and what we can do to help our existing advisors increase their performance. What would it mean if the middle 30% of your advisor population became just as high performing as the top 15% of your advisor population? What would it take to get there? Are you measuring things the right way to even know if it's possible to get there? Do you know what the gap is other than how much gross commission or fee revenue they're producing? Because that's just one metric. What are the other metrics that would maybe be the leading metrics to help them get to that high level of performance of your top performers in your organization? And when you look at your top performers in your organization, how are they doing compared to the top performers in some of your competitive firms? What would it take to get your top performers to be as high performing as other firms? So that's the kind of mindset I want you to bring to this. I want like that highly competitive thought process, because we're going racing in this episode. And we're going to think like teams that are trying to win F1, right? Grand Prix Championship. We're trying to think about winning the 24-hour Le Mans. So we're going to think a lot more competitively. Okay. I really think you're going to enjoy this episode. Anyway, as always, make sure you do like and subscribe to the podcast. You can find it at Modern Financial Advisor Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast jam on. You can also swing by Trulytics.com, go to the Modern Financial Advisor there. You'll see the podcast under that menu. And of course, make sure you send in your comments, your suggestions for topics on the show. I want to hear what you think about this specific episode, by the way, and answer this question. What's your favorite type of auto racing? What do you like best? Do you like drag racing? Do you like F1? Do you like me? Do you, as you'll hear, the endurance racing, off-road stuff, heck, motorcycle racing? Let me know what you think, okay? All right, and now let's go racing with me. Here we go. I've been watching a lot of auto racing during quarantine. I mean, a lot of racing. Not live racing, of course, but like old races and shows and movies about racing. A couple of nights ago, I finished the second season of Formula One Drive to Survive on Netflix. I've also watched Grand Prix Driver on Amazon Prime Video for another fix of F1 racing. I've watched Dust to Glory on Hulu, and now I'm totally convinced I could race in the Baja 1000. Don't tempt me. It might actually happen. That seems like fun. And this weekend, I finally got around to watching Ford versus Ferrari, which is fantastic. I mean, it's like Christian Bale and Matt Damon. It's a total winner. Absolutely highly recommend it. Check it out. I've also been geeking out on watching shows like Fastest Car, which is a show on Netflix where 3 home-built sleeper cars, like these are cars that look like junk boxes, and they've been souped up with really powerful engines. And these cars are then pitted up against like a supercar at the end of each episode to do a drag race. And, you know, every sleeper hopes to beat the supercar, the Ferrari, the Lamborghini, and take home braggy rights that they built this thing in their garage. I've watched hours of drag racing, which brought me back to my high school days where I was always plotting and scheming and looking through the Summit Racing catalog to find ways to, soup up my Hemi Orange Mopar. I just wanted to go faster. Everybody did in my high school. And of course, I've watched a lot of endurance racing. To me, there's like nothing better in the world than the 24-hour of Le Mans. I love the variety of cars across the classes, similar to Baja, where there's different types of trucks and off-road dune buggy type stuff racing. You're going to see multiple races in one, right? So it's really cool. At Le Mans and other endurance races, you see Audi versus Porsche in the LMP1 class. These are the prototypes. And then you also see like legit Ferraris that are not too far off from what you could buy off the showroom floor, racing Corvettes and Aston Martins and Porsche 911s. I was watching a documentary years ago called Truth in 24, which is about Audi's racing dominance at Le Mans, that really made me look at racing through a whole new lens, right? And before that, it was always about the car and the driver. But watching Truth in 24, I realized that racing truly is a team sport, and the team is just as important as the driver and the car he or she is driving. In Truth in 24, narrated by Jason Statham, I mean, come on, he's like the transporter. Why doesn't he narrate more car stuff? Like, he's awesome. Okay. Anyway, ball guys, we got to stick tight. Dude, you know it is. Anyway, it was the first time that I really gained an appreciation for how important the behind-the-scenes team members are to winning. And you see in the other racing shows I mentioned as well, right? Like, even Fastest Car, where they're racing the junk boxes against the supercar, when someone who bought their supercar off the showroom floor agrees to race a homemade sleeper car, great. They just bought their showroom car and they're going to hang out and go press a couple of buttons and launch control, and there they go. But the sleeper driver always has a team of friends who's helping him or her build and optimize the car. When it comes to the racing team, everyone recognizes the importance of the pit crew, right? We've all seen it. Pit stops really can win or lose you a race. These speed demons can change all 4 tires and fill a gas tank on the Formula One car in less than 2.5 seconds. Let that kind of sink in for a second, how quick that is. 1 second, half the time you get for a pit stop. Give them a few more seconds, and they can take the front nose off the car and install a new one, and off they go. So really, really cool stuff. But I find myself more curious about the engineers, the tech team, the analytics folks watching the monitors, the people who sell the sponsorships, and even the trainers who are out there making sure the drivers stay in elite athletic shape. Because it's not like the old days where they were smoking Marlboro Reds, right? These guys are actually elite athletes in a car. They're pulling G-forces in these corners, right? When you hear the voice tell the driver that the car is running hot and that he should fall back to let it cool off a bit so he doesn't burn out the engine, that really got me thinking about the roles of all these different team members supporting the drivers. And then the parallel hit me. Look at the same thing happening in our business. the team members supporting the advisors. Think of your advisors as race car drivers, and it's not such a huge leap if you let that notion percolate for a little bit, right? The drivers are really good at piloting a car really incredibly fast. They can feel when the car is running well, when the tires have the right grip on them, and they sense when things are a little off. Their focus? Go fast, don't crash, and try to win the race. The team's job is to make sure the driver can focus on these goals without having to worry about too much else. Why? Well, without the driver performing at a high level, the team doesn't win or even place. And if the team is slumping on the track, their business will suffer as well, because it's hard to attract sponsors when your car and your driver aren't on the podium. Winning makes more winning easier because it brings in more money and it helps the team attract higher quality talent. So the same parallel is there for your business. It all starts at the top though, right? In racing, just like at your firm, the team owners and the leadership make the big decisions that will create the environment for the driver to win. They attract the capital to build a team. They hire the technical director, the engineering director, the performance director, the trackside engineering director. And these folks, in turn, hire the pit crew and the logistics folks and so on. If the engine fails, not the driver's fault. If the car is slow, not the driver's fault. If the pit crew is slow, also not the driver's fault. If they put the wrong tires for the track conditions on the car and it slows the car down, again, you get the point. The driver drives because that's what drivers do best. And without drivers, there would be no sport. Without high-performing advisors, there would be no wealth management industry. There would be no wealth management firm. There's a reason why wealth management firms rely on advisors to acquire and manage clients. And I think too often we fail to think about this. It's because products and solutions that we provide to financial consumers are complex. And there's a lot of emotional navigation required to bring on a client and service them on an ongoing basis. People aren't comfortable talking about money. They're not in a position very often to make their own decisions on their own without having somebody hold their hand a little bit. They want somebody to talk to. So just like drivers, anyone can try to do it, but few do it really well. Lots of people drive. A lot of people drive fast. But very, very few can drive at 180 miles an hour, bumper to bumper, and control the car, be ready to pass another competitor on a turn and do so without crashing the car, right? Well, wealth management firms hire tens of thousands of new advisors every single year. Most wash out before year 5. And only a handful of those will remain to become top performers, right? To put it plainly, financial services don't sell themselves just as race cars don't drive themselves. And if someday they do, the business won't be as profitable as it is now. It just won't be, right? We've heard of robo-advisors. Okay, great. But the reality is clients with a reasonable amount of money, and specifically high net worth and ultra high net worth folks, really want a white glove treatment. They want somebody to talk to, somebody to walk through the process. They don't want to just hand it over to an algorithm, and they certainly don't want to have to spend all their time going to discover, how do I invest my money? They want some help, right? And if there was someday we have robot cars blasting around a track, okay, I'm sure some of us will watch, but the reality is we get a rush because we like seeing human performance, even if that human is piloting a machine. So the next question, or the next thought process we should go through, is what kind of car are your advisors driving, right? Is your firm fast, right? Because again, You hire your advisors just like teams hire their drivers to go fast and try to win races. Well, the go fast part's first. Is your firm fast? Are you making it easy for the advisor to do business? Think of the pit stop analogy as just one example, right? Every second counts on the track. And in your business, if an advisor has a request for compliance, say for a marketing campaign they want to run, how quickly is your firm able to turn that around so he or she can put that campaign into action and start winning new clients? Is it a couple of hours? Is it a couple of days? What's the approval process look like? And that's just one element of speed, right? There's lots of other things that you can imagine that an advisor might need from you, and speed would greatly improve their performance. So ask yourself, is your firm fast? And if it's not, try to get faster, just like the pit crew tries to get faster and shave seconds off that pit stop. Next question I have, and you should think about this. Is the firm keeping the advisor's business safe? Right? Again, we want to go fast and not crash, and then we want to try to win a race, right? So when the advisor thinks about their business, they want to make sure that it's safe. And there's a lot of reasons. Well, they think about through the business. Are you the best resource for them? Are you the best image for them? And all that type of stuff. But think about, what we're going through right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, with a lot of people in lockdown, quarantine, whatever your phraseology you like to use. Many people are starting to think about their own mortality, and then they think about their business and can that business survive? Truelytics has been evangelizing the value of its true continuity solution for emergency continuity preparedness. What would happen to an advisor's business if they died suddenly or became incapacitated? Would your firm have prepared them and made them safe, made the business safe? On the racetrack, seatbelts, anti-lock brakes, and crumple zones were all created for race cars first. The teams that adopted those new technologies first, before their competitors, they won more often. Their drivers survived, God forbid they got in a crash, and they were able to race again. You've invested a lot in bringing on these advisors and cultivating these advisors, helping them grow. Let's make sure they're safe, right? Next, is your firm giving advisors the analysis they need to track and improve business performance? Imagine a race car driver who had no idea how fast he was going. He had no idea how hard the engine was revving or how hot the car was running. Now imagine he's blind to how he's doing compared to other racers on the track. Sounds like absolutely ludicrous, right? Now, by the way, when you watch Ford versus Ferrari, you could see some elements of that. This is before the days where they all had radios in their helmets and they weren't 100% sure like how quick their lap times were unless they held up a card, like an actual board with the time on it. And they didn't know exactly how far away they were from the person they were trying to chase down on the track. Nowadays, all that stuff's relayed in the radio. They have all the gauges they need on the dash if they want them. But more and more communication's happening in their headset. So when you watch the Formula One Drive to Survive, you constantly hear that team communicating to the driver what position he's in. You're in P5, you're in P3. They're telling them, hey, car's running a little hot, as I mentioned earlier. They say, hey, the next step here to improve your performance is this. The driver doesn't have to ask the team to give him access to the analytics or the benchmarking data. He just gets it. The team doesn't expect the driver to wait until other drivers who have been with the team longer, have a little more seniority, have gotten their chance to get analytics tools and get the data. No, they make sure that all their drivers have the appropriate data. And so whether it's F1 or any other race type, the team doesn't make the driver pay for performance tools, right? They don't say, hey, sorry, hey, you know what? Here's a whole bunch of like tachometers and other things you could use maybe to see how things are going. Why don't you go ahead and install that on your own if you want? And oh, by the way, we're going to send you a bill for that new tachometer and the radio. If you want to hear from us to see how you're doing, we're going to charge you for that. No, they do everything they can to make sure the driver is in the best position to win and that every part is in the car so they have actionable information at the right time. So when it comes to your advisors, this is perhaps the greatest opportunity for performance enhancement that you can provide. Make sure they have performance tracking solutions in place that you can help them interpret and manage for continuous improvement, right? You don't want to have to think about it. Just make it a regular thing. And if necessary, help them set it up and provide it to them as a core component of your firm's commitment to their business and your own, right? It's not enough to tell advisors they can access something like Trulytics True Performance solution. That's like telling them that, hey, look, here's some gauges, figure out how to use them, right? And if you have time or whenever, if you could look down, right? No, you want to have a winning team. You need to do everything in your power to help your advisors increase their performance. And that may be setting up True Performance for them. Just, hey, give us the information. We'll do it for you. We'll do all the data entry for you. We'll get you set up. We're going to make sure that every single advisor under our umbrella has this thing because we want to know, number one, how our advisors, our drivers are performing. But we also know that if we can help you interpret this data and give you tips on what to do next, you're going to be a better performer. And we're going to have a whole suite of top performing advisors. Really, really exciting stuff. Lastly, if you're recruiting the next generation of your top performing advisors, you need to have a good process for doing so, right? Like the racing world, the wealth management space is highly competitive. That goes without saying. I mean, you know this better than anybody. But the best advisors, like their driver counterparts, they know they have options. And they're going to move to where they feel they can win. And we want that to be with your team. You want that to be with your team. So you need to be thinking about your recruiting process. How do I, number one, get efficient with getting recruits into this system? How do I help them evaluate our firm? And how do I make sure that I'm bringing in the right people to evaluate, right? If you're trying to get the top performers, you want to make sure you're seeing the top performers. And with new solutions like True Recruit from Trulytics, you can do that much more efficiently than you ever could before. Because instead of it being a much more manual process that often relies on external third-party recruiters, you're using a systematic approach to bring in advisors into the funnel, to evaluate them, to use data, just like with True Performance, to evaluate, are these the right advisors for us? Do we think we could develop them into our next generation of top performers? If so, we want to bring them in. Okay? I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I had an absolute blast kind of coming up with the concept and recording the show and thinking about the sound effects that we might use and where we're going to get those sound effects from. So that was a lot of fun. As promised, we absolutely burned the tires off with the analogy of race car drivers supported by racing teams and improving performance, and advisors and their wealth management firms and improving their performance as well. But I hope you got a lot out of it. This is not a concept that is foreign to us. We often go to a conference and the speakers that hit the main stage are from outside of our particular industry. They're brought in to give us fresh perspective, to think about the world a little bit differently. We often read biographies about successful people, whether they be in business, politics, or some other endeavor, and they're not necessarily right in our business. And we do the same thing with documentaries and so forth. And the reason for that is it helps us remove our tunnel vision and widen our perspective and open us up to thinking about things in a little bit of a new way. And here, what I was hoping to do was to get you thinking about how you can improve the performance of your advisors so that you can win more, so your business can grow and thrive more. Because look, we all want to win. We all want to be on the podium. I think many of your advisors really want that. Maybe some don't. And look, I understand the complexities of the situation, particularly when we're dealing with independent advisors. They own their own business. Some of them want to just have a lifestyle business. That's fine. Let them have it, okay? Let's invest in the ones who want to perform. Okay, I hope you got a lot out of it. Like I said, I really enjoyed the show. Please do send in your comments. As always, send them into podcast@truelytics.com, or you can reach out to me at Mike Langford. I'm pretty much everywhere at Mike Langford. Or you can reach out to Truelytics on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And please do swing by the Truelytics website, truelytics.com, and check out the latest Modern Financial Advisor offerings, whether those are articles from Carla McCabe or podcasts from myself. And yeah, that's it. All right. Stay safe out there. Make sure you buckle up, wear your helmet, wash your hands, use some hand sanitizer, wear a mask, right? Protect yourself. Okay. We want to see you for the next episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. Have a good one. See ya. Bye.